Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on ISO 13485 Medical Devices Quality Management System, Remote Implementation and Certification. The COVID-19 pandemic is unprecedented in modern times and profoundly changed the way the businesses are run and fundamentally alter management practices. It will also provide the significant opportunity for implementation, auditing and certification of management systems as per ISO standards. This webinar is conducted in collaboration with Credentials Global, our online ISO training partner. Please visit the website www.credentialsglobal.com to know more about them. I'm pleased to be here. My name is Sandeep. I'm a chartered engineering and management consulting professional with extensive industry experience. I have functional expertise in strategic management, operational excellence, system analysis and development, management systems and sustainability standards, risk assessment, technical regulations, conformity assessment, and accreditation. The agenda of this webinar is going to be setting the context, overview of the standard ISO 13485, benefits of being certified organization, essential steps to ISO 13485 certification, performing remote implementation and audits of ISO 13485, ISO 13485 2016 documentation toolkit, and also we will see how much does it going to cost us. Aim of this webinar is to demonstrate how certification of your medical devices quality management system can be achieved remotely without compromising on the requirement of the standard, depth of inquiry, or evidence required. The standard is a framework on which you base your management system. It is not designed to replace but enhance the existing one. ISO 13485 specifies requirements for the quality management system to be applied by the organizations involved in the medical device industry. The standard can be applied by organizations performing design and development, production, storage and distribution, installation, servicing, and disposal of medical devices, and by the suppliers or other external parties providing products to such organizations. Medical device industry is highly regulated. As such, the standard sets requirement for an organization to identify all regulatory requirements that are applicable to its business activities, determine its role in these activities according to the regulatory requirements, and ensure that its quality management system conforms to these regulatory requirements. Implementation of the QMS, that's quality management system, is a strategic decision of the organization which can be influenced by various factors such as organizational environment, varying needs, particular objectives, and products that the organization provides. While the two standards, that is ISO 9001 and ISO 13485, have some divergence in structure and terminology, they have several similarities that allow them to work together without conflict. This should allow organizations who have or are looking to obtain certification to ISO 9001 2015 to also obtain or maintain certification to ISO 13485 2016. Both standards continue to emphasize that the adoption of quality management system is a strategic decision for an organization. Management of any organization that decides to use a quality management system should integrate the requirement of these standards into their strategic planning and ensure quality objectives are also aligned with the achievement of the organizational objective. One of the biggest differences between two standards begins with the scope statement. The scope of ISO 9000 defines it is a general and generic standards for all quality management systems, while the scope of ISO 13485 is specific to the medical device sector and those related services. Specifically, ISO 13485 2016 is aimed at including those quality management system requirements for organizations that provide medical devices and helping organizations concerned with medical devices ensure they meet not only the customer requirement but also the applicable regulatory requirements for the countries and regions where the medical devices are provided. This difference in further emphasis in documentation requirement is ISO 13485, for which for the design history, management review, medical device files, complaint handling, regulatory reporting, and other regulatory focused documentation. ISO 13485 has an additional set of requirements specific to the medical device industry, and it discards some of the requirements of new ISO 9001. Therefore, compliance with the ISO 13485 does not imply compliance with ISO 9001, and any organization that aims to be compliant with the both standard has to implement all applicable requirements to both ISO 9001 and ISO 13485. Businesses that have implemented ISO 13485 cite numerous benefits. Many companies seek the certification because of the financial benefits to the business. The certification demonstrates their commitment to the building high quality medical devices that allows businesses to attract more clients than before. Many large medical devices businesses prefer to work with vendors who are ISO 13485 certified. The 2016 update to this standard may make this even more desirable. The revisions means that the large companies are responsible for ensuring that any subcontractors conform to ISO 13485 standard. That means subcontractors who already have the certification are likely to be prioritized. Both ISO 13485 and ISO 9001 are seen as indicators of organizations' commitment to the quality. Achieving a quality management certification demonstrates to customers and regulators that the company values the quality management system and the quality of its product and services. Standards like 13485 are created to ensure that the medical devices in different places demonstrate the same reliability and quality. If you are considering exporting products, ISO 13485 certification can lend an advantage. Not only it is the first step to regulatory approval in major markets like European Union and Canada, but also demonstrates the quality of the products to potential buyers. The documentation requirements in this standard are designed to ensure that all members of the development team have access to the information they need when they need it. Having access to the right information can reduce the time and expense associated with the product development. Many businesses hold both ISO 13485 and ISO 9001 certification. If your business is ISO 13485 certified, achieving ISO 9001 certification is significantly easier. The requirement of these two standards are generally harmonized. ISO 9000 does contain few requirements related to business causes that ISO 13485 doesn't cover. Risk management is an intrinsic concept within the medical devices regulations. While ISO 13485 2003 mainly applied risk management for activities related to product realization with a primary focus on the design and development of medical devices, the revised ISO 13485 QMS expands risk management to include processes such as purchasing and training. The new ISO 13485 2016 states the organization shall apply a risk-based approach to the control of the appropriate processes needed for the quality management system. In other words, anything that affects quality management system needs to be reviewed from the risk perspective. The revised ISO QMS standard requires medical device companies to make risk-based decisions related to purchasing and product realization activities and other aspects of quality management system, such as training. The term used in the standard pertains to the safety and or performance requirement of the medical device in the context of meeting applicable regulatory requirement at minimum. A failure mode effect analysis, we also call it FMEA, is a standard technique used to assess and evaluate potential risk in the design development phase, which continues during production process control. This and other related risk assessment techniques can also be used to incorporate other aspects of quality management system. ISO 13485 2016 follows a PDCA cycle, Plan, Do, Check, Act, which helps to adopt a drive for continual perfection in the process of the organization. This approach can improve any processes by dividing it into smaller steps, and it is effective for the implementation of QMS and helps to improve the whole product realization process. Also, it provides a range of solutions to problems and helps to select the best one for implementation. This method helps the proper allocation of resources, avoiding the wastage for the successful implementation of the solution. ISO 13485 2016 standard focuses on a process approach to quality management within an organization. The process approach is a review of a sequence, the inputs and outputs, and the interaction of processes. Any activity that receives inputs and produces output is considered a process. In most cases, output of one process is the input for the next and so on. The process approach perceives the management system not as collection of documents, but as an active system of processes. Quality system processes should identify and mitigate risk, in particular risk to product and process quality, to the business in general, and to meeting customer and regulatory requirements. Organizations that utilize a process approach to quality management tend to better understand and consistently meet and exceed product requirements, evaluate each process for a value-added perspective, achieve a higher level of process performance, and continually improve processes based upon performance data and not on speculation or opinion. ISO 13485 requirements encompass 8 clauses with supporting subclauses. The requirements to be applied to your quality management system are covered in clause 4 to 8. To successfully implement ISO 13485-2016 within your organization, you must satisfy the requirements within clause 4 to 8, along with meeting customer and applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. Clause 4 Quality Management System. Clause 4 addresses the requirement to document procedures related to quality management processes. Documentation requirements have been expanded and clarified in the 2016 update. This is additional language that clarifies the quality management processes required by ISO 13485. Do not exempt an organization from meeting any additional quality management requirements mandated by regulatory authorities. A primary change here states that the quality management requirements now apply to any outsourced products as well as those produced by the organization itself. 4.1 General Requirements states that the organization is responsible for establishing, implementing, and maintaining any quality management processes required by the standard. 4.2 Documentation Requirement. Documentation requirements have been considerably expanded. With an exception of the medical device file, all documents were required by the previous standard. However, the additional details of what this documentation must include have been clarified. The quality manual now requires an explanation of the scope of the project management system as well as justification for any exclusion from it. Requires the development of medical device file for each product, which must include specifications, labeling, use instructions, and any requirement for installation and servicing. Many of the requirements for documentation control remains the same. Documents are required to be reviewed and approved before publication. Records and documents applicable to medical devices still need to be kept for at least the lifetime of the medical device. Clause number 5, Management Responsibility. 5.1, Management Commitment. QMS implementation is your strategic decision that demonstrates your commitment to development and application of QMS and continual improvement of its effectiveness. This commitment must be demonstrated through informing the organization about the importance of fulfilling customer requirements, compliance with the legal and other requirements, establishing a quality policy and objectives, conducting management reviews, and providing needed resources. 5.2 Customer Focus. In the QMS process model, the users make requirement for a product on one side and demonstrate their reaction by expressing their satisfaction with the product on the other side. Those requirements must be identified and fulfilled in a way that increases customer satisfaction. 5.3 Quality Policy. The quality policy is a high-level document containing statement about the general direction of the organization and its commitment to quality and customer satisfaction. It provides a framework for quality objectives and must be communicated to employees in a way they understand. 5.4 Planning. The standard requires top-level management to establish quality objectives for appropriate functions and departments in the organization. For example, it could be human resources, production, design and development, purchase, etc. And in order to accomplish quality objectives, the organization must plan resources, deadlines, responsibilities, and appropriate evidence. Since the objectives are changeable, this planning is a continuous process. 5.5 Responsibility, Authority, and Communication. Responsibilities and authorities must be precisely defined and communicated to all hierarchical levels of the organization. In specific situation, seasonal fluctuation of labor force, emergency situation, etc., it is necessary to precisely document and communicate the authorities and especially the responsibilities of temporarily employed workers. 5.6 Management review. At least once in a year, the top level management must review the QMS in order to determine its appropriateness. That means, does it serve its purpose and satisfy the needs of the organization? Adequacy. Does the QMS conforms to the standard requirements? Applicability. Are activities performed according to the procedures? Effectiveness. Does it accomplish the planned results? Clause number 6, resource planning. 6.1, provision of resources. The organization must provide resources, that is people, finances, infrastructure, etc., in order to apply and maintain the QMS, continually improve its effectiveness and increase the level of customer satisfaction to fulfillment of their requirements. Resources needed to be reviewed periodically, especially if you increase business volume, to determine whether the available resources are enough or if we need to provide more. 6.2, human resources. Changes in this section focus on requirements for additional documentation of the processes for establishing competency. The updates include ability to use processes proportional to the risk level of the action. Low risk tasks may require very little documentation to prove competency, while high risk actions require considerably more. 6.3, infrastructure. The infrastructure includes buildings, workspace, equipment, process equipment, which could be hardware and software, and support services. Many requirements for infrastructure can be included in legislation. 6.4, work environment and contamination control. 6.4.1, work environment, working conditions. For example, humidity, noise, light, temperature, vibration, etc., are also in most cases defined by the legislation. The organization must document requirements for infrastructure necessary to manufacture product compliant with the requirement. Requirements for working conditions and procedures for monitoring and controlling of the work conditions need to be documented only if they can have adverse effects on the quality of product or its conformity to legal or other requirements. This includes requirement for health, cleanliness, and clothing of personnel when contact between the personnel and the product can give negative effect on the safety or performance of the product. 6.4.2, contamination control. In order to prevent contamination of the work environment, product, or personnel, the organization needs to document a procedure for control of contaminated or potentially contaminated products. In case of sterile medical devices, the organization must document a procedure for control of contamination with microorganisms. Clause number 7, product realization. 7.1, planning of product realization. All activities regarding product realization must be planned, as well as the methods of realization. For example, defining quality objectives, product requirements, customer requirements, and the product acceptance criteria. Outputs of product realization planning can be quality plans, project plans, etc. 7.2, customer related processes. Before you begin developing your device, you need to have clear understanding of your target audience. For the purposes of this ISO specification, the term customer is used much more loosely than what you would normally think of. Your customer is more than just the end patient. It is every person or company that interacts with your product after it has left your control. For example, your product contains certain types of batteries or other potentially hazardous material. You may have customer requirements that apply to the shipping or logistic companies that transport it. Your customer needs and the requirements will need to be thoroughly defined and clearly documented along with any product requirements along the way, like asking your shipping company to avoid temperature over or under a certain degree to avoid damaging the device. 7.3, design and development. This clause refers to design and development management from initial idea to final acceptance of product. ISO 9000 explains that the term design and development are often used as synonyms and sometimes define different phases of overall design and development. This means that a design can't be used apart from development and that they represent one single process. 7.4, Purchasing. Purchasing includes product and services you acquire from suppliers and outsource processes. You need to establish and document criteria for supplier selection, which includes how crucial the purchased product or services is to the quality of your product. Result of the supplier evaluation must be kept. Production and service provision 7.5, that is, the purpose of section 7.5 is to plan oversight of the manufacturing of your medical device. Your entire production process should be planned, executed, monitored, and controlled so that it meets your specifications. These steps are crucial to ensure that when you develop a successful batch of devices, you can scale and repeat this process with the same quality produced each time. 7.6, control of monitoring and measuring equipment. The first step in complying with these requirements is to identify monitoring and measuring activities necessary to maintain compliance of the medical device with its requirements, and then to identify monitoring and measurement equipment necessary to perform the monitoring and measurement activities. In order to accomplish this, the organization has to document a procedure for maintenance of the equipment. As necessary, the organization needs to ensure that the monitoring equipment is calibrated and fit for its purpose, and the records of these activities need to be maintained. Clause number 8, measurement, analysis, and improvement. 8.1 general. This requirement should not be equated with the requirement for managing equipment for monitoring and measuring from the clause 7.6 of the standard. This is about a wider aspect of monitoring and measuring. Information derived from monitoring and measurement and analysis represents an input in the process improvement and management review. The purpose is to demonstrate conformity of the medical devices to the QMS and to maintain its effectiveness. 8.2 monitoring and measurement. 8.2.1 feedback. One of the measures of QMS effectiveness is information on whether the organization met the requirements of the customer. Considering the importance of this process and the valuable input it provides for further improvement of the QMS, the organization needs to document a procedure for the feedback process, which will include the methodology for obtaining and using this information. 8.2.2 complaint handling. As far as any other quality management system standard, the customer is the main focus of the organization's activities. Any complaint filed by a customer must be dealt with in a timely manner and in accordance with the applicable regulatory and statutory requirements. The standard requires an organization to document a procedure that will define the process of complaint handling, from receiving and recording the information to handling the complaint related to product and determining the need to initiate corrective action. 8.2.3 reporting to regulatory authorities. In case where there is a legal requirement to notify appropriate authorities regarding the complaints or issuance of advisory notices, organization needs to document a procedure and keep records of reporting to regulatory authorities. 8.2.4 internal audit. An internal audit is performed to determine whether the QMS conforms to its documentation and the standard and applicable legal requirements. In addition, the audit should determine whether QMS is effectively implemented and maintained. The organization needs to document a procedure for internal audit to define responsibilities and activities necessary to perform the internal audit, from planning to reporting the results. 8.2.5 monitoring and measurement of processes. Do our processes deliver what we expect from them? The best way to determine this by performing appropriate monitoring and measuring activities of the process parameters in cases where the monitoring and measuring results are not satisfactory. The organization needs to take corrections and corrective actions in order to improve its process performance. In conclusion, ISO 13485 provides organization with guidance as to the quality of the product and services, with the ultimate goal of achieving customer satisfaction. Delivering on all of the clauses of the standard and truly understanding them can benefit your organization and drive your company along the road of continual improvement. Certification and compliance can bring reputational, motivational, and financial benefits to your organization through improved efficiency, quality of product and services, and avoiding non-conformities and customer complaints. along with the improvements in your supply chain. All of these elements are closely related to your organization's ability to deliver satisfaction to your customer and meet applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. It will also fulfill the expectation and wishes of your stakeholders. Having all of this in mind, can your organization afford not to have ISO 13485 certification? During this period of disruption caused by coronavirus COVID-19, many organizations are relying on remote working using conferencing facilities like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and Google Hangouts. There are many business activities which can be completed remotely, allowing people to work from home and reduce the organization's carbon footprint in the process. We could find that even after coronavirus measures, organizations maintain high levels of remote working. The general framework of management system standard implementation and auditing is changing. Current developments such as technological change, digitization, increasing demand for agile interactions, fast-paced business environments, and globalization have a great influence on the TIC, testing, inspection, and certification sector. Computer-aided implementation and audit techniques can make a significant contribution to increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of consulting interventions and certification. Now then, let us have a look at the key steps to an effective and organized approach to achieving ISO 13485 compliance. Step number one, preparation. The initial phase should include gaining a thorough understanding of what the standard is and what it entails. This phase may involve appointing ISO 13485 champion among senior leaders. In addition, it is critical that senior leadership is on board and fully aware of the commitment and importance. Step 2, gap analysis. Conduct a thorough review of all existing quality policies, protocols, tools, and needs. This will help inform your response to ISO standard requirements and form the basis of the core elements of your solution, that is the quality management system, MDQMS. Step 3, assemble the team. It's smart to create a project team and leader that are well informed about your operations and quality. Step 4, scope, context, and objectives. Have the team create documents that define the scope of the project. Any organizational context such as historical approaches, customer needs, and regulatory mandates and stakeholders. Quality risk assessment. A risk assessment plan is a component of ISO process. The process needs to be outlined and data, results, and analysis must be recorded. Control risk to the quality. Once the risks have been identified, the organization needs to plan for each one, treat, tolerate, terminate, or transfer the risk. These decisions need to be documented and reviewed with your ISO auditor. Train. Train your employees, and your employees needs to understand the importance of certification, and they have to be trained on quality and its importance. Review and update. Check your documentation to ensure that your policies, processes, and procedures for your medical devices quality management system are formatted correctly and meet ISO 13485 requirements. After that, conduct internal audit. Certification requires internal audits are planned at particular intervals. It is also necessary to establish measurements, monitoring system, and review results. And finally, the external audits. There are two stages to ISO 13485 audit. Stage 1 is to determine if your MDQMS has been developed in accordance with the ISO requirements, and stage 2 is a certification audit, where the auditor will do the thorough evaluation to determine if you are complying with the standard. A remote management system implementation and audit, also known as e-implementation and audit, is exactly same as an implementation and audit, but using electronic means to remotely deliver training, guidance, consultancy, and obtain audit evidence and evaluate it objectively in order to determine the extent of conformity to the audit criteria. Remote intervention techniques are similar to those used in person, but for instance, you can share a file via email, Google Drive or Box, etc. In addition, the company can provide documents by sharing its desktop screen or via video conference using Skype, Zoom, etc., which is also used for interviews together with the phone. Surprisingly, reviewing documents and records virtually can be even more effective than doing so on site. Some areas that can present difficulties during remote intervention involve manufacturing processes or product storage. In these cases, a remote intervention can use live videos or even surveillance videos to exchange necessary information. Remote audit methods are already mentioned in DIN EN ISO 19011 guidelines for auditing management systems. According to the standard, the nature and scope of remote audit methodology may differ. Benefits of remote auditing: saving time and money with the use of technology. Most of the data, if not all, is accessible from anywhere, such as cloud portal. So why waste so much time traveling to check documentation that can be available by other means? In this sense, there will be a significant reduction in money and time spent on commuting to the audit location. In addition, interviews and even the observations can be conducted through popular platforms like Skype or Zoom, which are regularly used by many of the companies already. Avoiding traveling to difficult locations. Some locations to audit can be difficult to access for many reasons. Maybe they are just in an isolated area, or strict permits are needed to get in. Even visas sometimes are required if audits are conducted internationally. With a remote audit, you can avoid all these difficulties. Logistics related to auditing are not needed anymore. When conducting remote audits, usually organizations are relieved from logistics related to booking conference rooms and cleaning after audit teams leaves, as well as worrying about audit team accommodation, interruptions to employees' regular workflow, and other related inconvenience experienced during an on-site audit. The audit team will be more efficient working from their home office environment. The audit team will feel more comfortable since they will be able to use all the necessary tools such as high-speed internet, monitors, printers, etc. This way, the productivity will be substantially increased in an in-audit in comparison with an on-site audit, needing fewer hours to complete a certain task. Now let us see barriers to remote implementation and auditing of ISO 13485. First of all, confidentiality, quality, and data protection. You must ensure agreement between your ISO certification body and your organization about confidentiality, quality, and data protection issues. You must have an agreement which should be documented. Use of information and communication technology. There should be stable connection with good online connection quality. The ICT, that is information and communication technology, allows access to relevant documented information, including software, databases, records, etc. It is possible to make authentication, identification of interviewed people, preferably with image. If observation of facilities, processes, activities, etc., is relevant to achieve ISO management system implementation and auditing objectives, if it is possible to access them by video. People in the organization. Is it possible to access and interview people relevant for the management system standard? The people involved in the implementation auditing know how to use ICT tools and they know how to use them. Complexity of the organization. In case of complex organization, processes or products and services, a careful analysis of feasibility of remote implementation and auditing to be fully evaluated by the organization and the certification body. Remote interventions have come to stay. Their advantages are unquestionable over the traditional methods. Although, excuse me, although there are still some barriers to overcome, traditional audits, even when they have been well planned and executed, may cause a certain amount of inconvenience and disruptions to the organization. In addition, business managers are increasingly finding these interventions very attractive since reduction in cost and resources are undeniable using virtual methodologies. Also, remote interventions are an alternative for more efficient and productive method for ISO training, consulting, and certification, not only from the point of view of the organization, but to the employees as well. Our approach, drawing on our practical information and the quality management system know-how and proven management system consultancy and certification expertise, we can help you implement an ISO 13485 compliant medical devices quality management system with ease. We provide a 100% guarantee of successful certification when you engage our team. We provide generic benchmark templates for documenting medical devices quality management system that includes quality policy and quality objectives, quality policy manual, quality procedures manual, risk assessment manual, design program management, product documentation, clinical studies manual, and records and formats templates. Before implementing ISO 13485, one needs to consider the cost and project length, which are further influenced by the detailed understanding of implementation phases. Any cost is painful in tough economic times. Organizations that want to reduce cost without compromising quality are looking at ISO. Implementation costs are driven by the perception of risk and how much risk an organization is prepared to accept. Four costs needs to be considered when implementing this type of project. Internal resources. The system covers wide range of business functions, including management, human resources, information technology, production facilities, and quality. These resources will be required during the implementation of MDQMS. External resources, experienced consultants will save huge amount of time and cost. They will also prove useful during internal audits and ensure smooth transition towards certification. Certification, only few approved certification agencies currently assess companies against ISO 13485, but fees are not much more than against other standards. Implementation, this cost depends largely on the baseline quality management practices available within the organization. On average, implementation of a system such as this can take 1 to 4 months and depends largely on the standard of conduct and quality practices and management support. Tone at the top. The size and nature of the organization, the maturity of quality practices within the organization, and existing documentation. Please do get in touch with us if you are seriously interested in implementing medical devices quality management system based on ISO 13485 in your organization. We are here to assist you to acquire the certification with a purpose and value. Folks, at Standard Certification Council, we would like to keep you up to date on what we are saying, thinking, and doing during these difficult times. If you haven't already, you can like, share, and subscribe our channel. Thank you once again. Bye bye. Stay home and take care.